Welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. Got a very special episode today. One that should be quite memorable, as my
Oh
host
yeah.
has been telling. So, I am Steven the Indian. This is Will the Cowboy. We are a cowboy and Indian that talks about ghosts, conspiracy theories, cryptids, and all the like. So, if this is your first time tuning in, saddle up, get ready, and yeah, if you want to connect with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Our username is at Beyond Campfire or at Beyond Campfire Podcast, so be sure to connect with us there. That said, Will, what you got for us today?
Well, it might not seem like a lot of information for this episode, but today we actually have probably one of our most famous paranormal accounts ever done at all. Um, yeah, today we're going to be talking about Raynham Hall and kind of what spooks go on inside. Um, this home is located in Norfolk, and it is a home that has been owned by the same family for centuries, about 400 years. The Townsend family has owned this home. To this day, they still own it, so you can't really go visit it. You'd have to kind of contact the family and be like, "Hey, let me in your house." Um, but the hall gave its name to the five estate villages, which were known as the Raynhams. From what I could see on a map, the only three that are still there today are East, West, and South Raynham. Um, Now, this location, as I said, is very famous, and that's mostly due to the Brown Lady, but we'll cover her in a moment. Um, so, yeah, you ready to dive into the history of Raynham Hall?
Yes, sir. Let's get into it.
All right, so before we get into the spooky stuff, I want to bore you guys with a little bit of history about the place. The home apparently had a false start in 1619. If you don't know like what a false start was, it was like, hey, we're going to build a house, and then they're like, never mind. So, however, there was found an accumulation of a large quantity of Keaton stone in 1620. Keaton stone is just like Jurassic limestone, like fancy limestone. Um, this allowed for them to re-begin building in 1622, and by the time Sir Roger Townshend died in 1637, it was completed. Roger was the first owner, the first Townshend to live there. Um, Now, Sir Roger Pratt, who was an architect, he did note that some rooms seemed to not have fitted out when he visited the home a few years after Roger's death. So, Roger was like, "Oh, the house is complete." Died. And then this architect was kind of like, "Well, he did it, but it doesn't look fully complete." Um, he wrote, "Not long after it was built, I was some while in it, while it had no ornament at all. There was someone in it divine in the symmetry of proportions of length, height, and breadth, which was harmonious to the rational soul." So yeah, that's basically the history of the home. It was built, had a false start in 1619. They got what they needed in 1621. Did the construction in 1622. The home was quote unquote completed in 1637.
Nice.
Um,
So,
yeah,
fairly recent building. I mean, relatively speaking.
yeah. Well, what is really interesting about Raymond Hall is if you look at photos of Raymond Hall, those homes looked in the 1700s. Like if you looked at an English royal's home in 1700s, um, that was the interesting thing was it looked way ahead of its time.
Okay.
That was due to oh, I'm sorry. Now it was definitely an outstanding country home for that time. I mean, you could debate if it was the first of this kind or not, but it was definitely unique, and that was because Roger he took a 3-year grand tour. Do you know what like a grand tour kind of was back then?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd like kind of bum around Europe for a little bit. And due to this tour, he got inspiration from the Italians. And so Raynham Hall would be built in that new style, which, like I said, followed more Italian form and plan, except for, of course, the hip roof and Dutch gables. And this home could have been mistaken for a house built, like I said, almost 100 years later. Um, Now, that was basically the end of it for a little while. It kind of remained the same for a little bit. However, there were later extensions and interiors that were designed for the second Viscount Townshend by William Kent. Now, you're going to want to remember the second Viscount Townshend, because he's going to be important later. He brought details to its front piece on the north front, which more closely in line with the manner of Inigo Jones. Inigo Jones was like a very famous architect back in the day, like back in the 1500s. Like he was pretty famous. So they were kind of trying to bring a little bit of his inspiration to the place. Working at Raynham Hall from 1725 to 1732, Kent added the north wing and decorated the interior. That's where much of his finest work can be seen, is in that north hall, especially the elaborately carved architectural chimney pieces, the architectural door cases, and the painted staircase imitating niches and sculptures. And of course, there's a painted ceiling imitating a mosaic in the Belisarius room. The impressive and beautiful ceiling of the Marble Hall was completed in 1730 with this motif of Lord Townshend's coat of arms. It was sometimes attributed in the 19th century to Inigo Jones himself. So again, getting some more inspiration here. In the state dining room, there was a screen in the manner of a Roman triumphal arch. It irritated, according to some people, it irritated Lord Oxford, who saw it in 1732 and said, "The Arch of Severus, surely a most preposterous thing to introduce a building in a room which was designed to stand in a street." He didn't like it. So yeah, that's basically the history. You had this home built, and there was no other additions added on, from what I understand historically. I don't think the home has changed since then.
Yeah.
Any thoughts or questions about the history of the home?
I mean, so far very mundane. Nothing, nothing to suggest any creepiness or mystery quite
Yeah,
yet. But it's just like, okay, it's a very fancy building at this time, advanced first time. But okay, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, not really any questions other than that.
All right. Well, so like I said, I want you guys to remember from the history here about the second Viscount Townshend, because he plays a role later. But now we're going to talk about some of the ghosts, inhabitants, and of course, the haunts. And then, of course, I'm going to save the best ghost for last, which is the most famous ghost. This
Boy,
is the one that's been most documented.
oh boy. All right, all right. Let's get into.
So, first off, we have the ghost of James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. If you don't know who that guy is, he was the eldest legitimate son of Charles II of England. That's the king. He was famous for the Monmouth Rebellion in 1685, which failed. Basically, he was a Protestant, didn't like his Catholic uncles ruling the throne, and he wanted to overthrow him.
Team here, yeah. Throw out a lot of
And it kind of was fueled a little bit by his officers calling him the king. And he's kind of like, you know what, I am. I'm going to go overthrow the Catholics. It didn't end well, because on July 15th, 1685, he was beheaded for treason at the Tower of London.
Oh, Tower of London. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that callback.
Yeah, connecting some various episodes for sure.
Now, you might be like, I tried to look into this a little bit, because I was like, why is this guy haunting? But nobody knows. Like, some people might have seen him. They attributed him to this guy in the Iron Mask, because apparently some people say he wasn't actually killed and executed, that he was actually taken prisoner in France. And anyways, people see his ghost. Why? We don't know. Some people say that apparently the man who first owned the hall was good friends with Charles II, so it could explain it, but it's kind of a stretch. Apparently, there was also a caretaker on the property. He had a cocker spaniel, and that cocker spaniel haunts the house. So you heard dogs barking.
Ghost dog. Look at that.
Ghost dog, right?
Ghost.
And my least favorite of all haunts is children. Yeah.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
apparently some children that haunt this place too.
Those are extremely creepy, yeah.
So yeah, those are at least 3 of the ghosts that we know of. Now, the most famous ghost, and the whole reason for this episode, is because of the Brown Lady. Okay.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
There's a legend to her to explain what happened to her, and then there is some famous encounters of her. So, this is phenomenal evidence they have here, and I'll get into it. But we will start by telling the story of who the brown lady was. So, as I said earlier, one of the townships who owned Raymond Hall was a man named Charles. Okay. Charles is the guy that had William Kent do those additions. Okay. Now, Charles had a wife. She died. Okay. He got remarried to his second wife, and her name was Lady Dorothy Walpole in 1713. Now, she was said to be the prettiest sister of Robert Walpole, who was an English Whig politician. Well, unfortunately, Charles and Dorothy did not have a very happy marriage. He was said to have a violent temper and a jealous streak. And so the legend goes that he caught her cheating on him and then proceeded to lock her away in the house and was never going to let her leave. Now, there are some other
Oh, wow.
accounts that the man that she was claimed to have cheated on him with um, was actually like she was friends with his wife, and that the husband saw her go over the house and stay over there and got suspicious, and she might have been set up. But either way, it ends in tragedy because, well, she was locked in the home forever until she died of smallpox in 1726.
Yeah, I would probably haunt a house if I was locked in it forever and just
I know,
yeah.
right? So
So
yeah, so that's the story of the brown lady. Now there was some research in the 1960s that apparently I found that was like this story might not be true, the legend might not be true, but what is true is that she still haunts the hall to this day, and there are some famous accounts, as I've stated, about her haunts.
why is she called the brown lady? Is she brown?
No, she's white, but she's seen in a brown dress.
Okay, that's why. So
Most people see her in a brown dress, and that's why she's been called the brown lady.
yeah, that makes
So, the first account we have of her was a sighting that occurred in 1836.
uh,
1836, by the way. So this is before AI. This is before Photoshop. The first sighting was in 1836 by a man named Captain Frederick Marryat. Have you ever heard of Frederick Marryat?
I have not no.
Well, he was a good friend of Charles Dickens, and he was also a writer like his buddy.
Look at
And
that.
yeah, and so he heard these ghost stories about the brown lady in Raynham Hall, and he said, "You know what? I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to spend the night for a little bit, and spend a couple nights and see what goes on there, right?" So now, according to his daughter, she claims he always slept with his gun under his pillow. So he always had kept his pistol by him, Hashtag me too. Um, so I don't know why, but he was out walking the corridor one night and he had his pistol with him. And he sees this apparition coming down the hallway. And it's the brown lady. And he claims that she was trying to get closer to him and she had a malicious smile on her face, which kind of set him off. So he started blasting. He pulled out his pistol
Oh boy.
and he shot at the ghost. The bullet went through her head, of course, because she's a ghost, and got lodged in the wood. And then she dissipated. And ever since then, he never wanted to go back. He said, "I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this." And he left.
Sounds pretty reasonable to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions on that?
So I guess when he saw it, I guess he didn't realize it was a ghost, or maybe he did, but he just felt like, hey, let me blah 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 this thing.
Like he's like, Charles Dickens should have put this in his book. Like Ebenezer Scrooge, he should have shot the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Right. To be fair, I don't
Anyways,
actually do if I saw a ghost. So, I don't think what he said was totally like unwarranted or anything like that. But
yeah.
it's just kind of
All I can
hilarious.
think about all I can think about is Danny DeVito and Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So, anyways, it just started blasting.
Right.
It's like, okay, awesome, great.
Absolutely hilarious. I love it. So
So now we're going to get into the most famous incident that really has truly fueled this haunting. Stevie, you remember that photo I sent you?
yes, I do.
Okay, so this is the most famous incident. So do you want to take a guess when this occurred? When that photo was taken?
Oh wow. 80s. I don't know. 1980s.
September 19th, 1936.
Oh wow. What? Okay.
Captain Hubert C. Proband and his assistant Indri Shira visited the hall on a photography assignment. So
Okay.
again, they're not there for ghosts. They're there just to take photos.
Right.
In the main stairwell, they set up their camera. And you want to take a guess how old this camera was?
I guess at the time.
He had to take the black cloth and put it over his head to take the
Oh
photo.
wow. So yeah, I mean
That
1800s. So
it's an old camera.
right.
So, 1936, Captain Hubert, he's getting up underneath the cloth and getting ready to take the photo. Well, while he was under the cloth, his assistant saw something
Oh
and
boy.
urged him to take the photo now.
Right.
And he snapped the photo. And that was the day, and that was the day the famous photo of the brown lady was taken.
Oh my
So,
god.
if you ever hear the word about the brown lady, this in paranormal investigators, this is the most famous piece of evidence ever of a ghost.
I see.
It was first published in the magazine Country Life in that same year. However, many claim it was a fake photo. However, again, this is the best known and most famous ghost photo ever taken.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is incredible. Oh my goodness.
Yes, if you didn't believe in ghosts, now you probably do.
Right? Yeah, I was looking at it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is like a fan thing or maybe this is something else, but yeah, wow, no, that is absolutely crazy.
And that, like I said, this is 1936. This is an old camera, so it's like you cannot just and like it's not like he took the photo and was like, "Whoa, there's a ghost in the photo," but like his assistant saw it and was like, "Take the photo,"
Right.
and he did, and that's what came out.
Yeah. Absolutely incredible. Wow.
And that's like the most famous photo of all time.
Right.
Because I feel like nowadays, like especially with photos from like 1980 and 90s, I feel like you could doctor those photos, but this guy probably had no clue what was going on, took the photo, developed it, and then went, "What the heck is that?"
Right. Yeah.
I guess my assistant did see something.
Yeah. Yeah. No, insane.
Because like, that's the thing too with like AI and everything today is like I feel like today it's a lot harder to actually put something out there like that and say, "Look at me, I caught a ghost," because people are going to claim AI and this, but this photo was taken at a time when that's not possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I do have a story for us
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited
about
to.
us in Raynham Hall. Any thoughts, comments, questions before I get into that?
No. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's get into the story.
All righty. The Haunting of Raynham Hall, Part 1, The Lady in the Picture.
Oh boy.
Once again, this is not written by ChatGPT. This is actually written by somebody, not ChatGPT. So this is an actual true, not true story, but it's our account.
Right. Let's go.
Tall, dark gates rose from the hedgerow, less like a structure and more like a remembrance. Wrought iron darkened with age, scrollwork twisted into crests and curling leaves, the hinges answering touch with a low, tired groan. Beyond them, the drive stretched long and pale beneath a tunnel of ancient trees, their branches interlocking overhead, turning daylight into something filtered and thin. Gravel crunched underfoot as the path curved inward. The house hidden at first by distance and green. The air smelled faintly of damp stone and fallen leaves, even in summer. Somewhere deeper in the grounds, birds called, but the sound felt restrained, as if the estate itself preferred quiet. Raynham Hall revealed itself gradually, its roof line pale against the sky, flowing to the building. Honey colored stone, tall windows dark with reflection, columns rising toward a pediment carved with weather softened heraldry. The house didn't loom like we thought it would. It waited. The drive widened into a circular courtyard where a dry fountain sat at the center, its basin stained with age. Ivy climbed the lower walls, creeping towards windows that had been opened in years. The front door stood heavy and dark, oak banded in iron, the handles cold even in the sunlight. From the gate, the house gave no sense of menace, just the quiet certainty that it had been standing there long before anyone arrived and would remain long after they left. The doors opened inward with a weightly hush, wood shifting against stone like something exhaling after holding its breath too long. Inside, the air changed immediately, cooler, still, carrying the faint scent of old polish, dust, and something deeper. Sound softened. Even our footsteps felt swallowed. The space was wide and built to impress without trying. Portraits lined the walls, men in powdered wigs and women in stiff gowns, their eyes following nothing and everything at once. Stephen slowed near the first archway, glancing upward. These places have started to feel like museums, he murmured. Yeah, I huffed. Only difference is we're the ones being watched. I finished, my voice lowered. To the left, a corridor slipped away into shadow. To the right, a sitting room, open behind half drawn doors, heavy curtains holding the daylight hostage. Straight ahead, the staircase. It rose in a gentle curve, wide and shallow banister polished smooth by centuries of hands. The steps were pale stone, worn faintly concave at their centers. Above, the landing vanished into a ceiling high enough to swallow sound. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the picture I'd stashed there earlier, raising it just above the staircase. This is where they took the photo. Steve followed my gaze upward. The stairwell felt empty, like something had stepped out of frame and hadn't come back yet. Think we'll get one like that? He asked. And I scoffed. Oh, trust me. If the brown lady makes an appearance, she will be getting shot. He huffed a chuckle. Yeah, because that worked so great in the past. I shrugged as we keep walking. These guns were made to rewrite history. The house creaked somewhere deeper inside, not sharply, not urgently, just settling, breathing. We moved forward. The moment my foot touched the first stair, the temperature dropped. My breath fogged faintly before disappearing. Stevens didn't seem to register it. Probably a draft, I muttered. Probably, he agreed. Part 2. The Viscount's Prison Bride. Past midnight, after the caretaker had left, Steve and I continued exploring through the house in hopes of coming across the infamous brown lady. The house felt thick with lore with each floor we entered. The story of the picture, Mariette, King George the Fourth, Lady Dorothy Walpole, was just, as Steve said, a museum. The next hallway we stepped into was narrower than the rest of the house. Ceilings dipped in a poor attempt at brightening the ominous space. But what struck our attention were the mirrors lined up against the wall. Well, Steve said, that's one mystery. What's with all the mirrors? Steve shrugged. Maybe the staff put it up when they started noticing things? I nodded. Mirrors are historically a pathway. Maybe they still are. Clutching his crucifix, he did the sign of the cross. I took a closer look at the mirrors and we started walking inside slowly. Narrow frames, antique glass, wrapped faintly by age, reflecting off each other and stretching the hallway. A dozen versions of us receding down false corridors. Stephen raising their camera, one moving a fraction of a second behind the last. There's nothing strange in the viewfinder. We walked past a set of mirrors that fractured every moment into a separate reflection. shoulders, hands, eyes, none of them sinking the way they should. Good. This is already disorientating enough. And the next moment, both of us snapped our heads back in fright, our flashlights following a second after. Someone stood there, not behind us, but in the mirrors. A woman, maybe 10 feet from us. It was hard to tell. Her dress dark under her pale, glowing face, eyes lost in utter darkness. The fear I felt was not triggered by her, it came naturally. Tell me you see it too. Stephen didn't answer. My eyes turned slowly to him, the way his fingers tightened around his crucifix, to the murmuring from his lips as his eyes locked on the spirit. Ah, shit. I reached for my revolver, aiming it sharply at the reflection, not knowing which one to focus on, but she didn't respond. Not at first. Just when I lowered my weapon, she began to dart past the hallway. Stephen's prayers got louder, and my heart skipped a few pulses. Recovering instantly, I yanked my gun up again just before she got to us. Hey! Will, no! Suddenly she stopped, her head snapping to me as if she just noticed me, all her reflections going to the one. She turned to me fully. I felt my blood run dry. How I was able to keep my gun aimed at her was beyond me at this point. She was under interaction lock. Damn. What do you want? Why are you still here? Steve yelled, and her attention switched to him. My finger tightened around the trigger as Stephen held up his crucifix. She paused mid motion, giving us a wicked smile before she vanished. What was all that talk about you shooting the ghost? Oh, now you think it's a good idea. Do you see these mirrors? We can't afford as much as a dent on one of these things. So you're an expert on mirrors now? No, I'm a man who appreciates history, smartass. Whatever. Let's get out of here. He turned and started walking, and I followed him. Yeah, I could use a beer on the way back. Morning came shortly after, and we caught someplace, taking one last tour around later in the afternoon when the caretaker returned. And then when evening fell, we prepared to return to our hotel in central England. I stood by the bathroom sink, brushing my teeth as Steve nagged on about us missing the train, and I ignored him. After rinsing my mouth, I lifted my head to the mirror, and there she was. It never gets old how scary that was, but I fought my instincts and didn't do anything about it. She stood behind me for a moment, staring at her own reflection, at least how it looked. Then she began to sob, hands covering her face as she disappeared once again. Gosh damn it. The bathroom door burst open as I walked out and grabbed my jacket. What's wrong? Steve asked, and I grabbed my suitcase next. We need to leave or we'll miss the train. Steve watched me for a moment, but didn't say anything more as he grabbed the things and we headed out, not looking back until we'd passed the gates of Raynham Hall. At the end.
That writer is good. Very
I
good.
know. I
Like it
like
all.
the little argument that you and I have where I'm like, I want to shoot the ghost. And then I'm too scared to shoot the ghost. And you're like, so what was that about shooting the ghost?
I
I'm
know,
like,
right?
dude, if I hit one of these mirrors, we can't afford that.
Exactly.
And then, you're like, whatever. And I'm like, you smart ass. And I'm like,
Oh man, it's good. It's good. So, uh, yeah, Raynham Hall. Is it still open to this? It is still open to this day, right?
the family still lives there. You can't tour it, but people
Oh, I
still
see.
live there. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Townshend family still lives in the house to this day. Whether or not they see the ghost, who knows? Really, after 1936, it kind of went quiet a little bit. And if she's still haunting, the family's not really saying anything about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because probably at this point, they're just used to her. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, every Christmas, we all gather around the tree, even our great, great, great grandmother, Dorothy.
Right. I
So,
love
yeah, I
that's
wish you could tour it, but there's no ghost tours, there's no history tours. There's really, you got to talk to the family if you want to get in.
yeah. I hear you. So, all right. Well, that's all I have. Well, I don't know if you had any last minute things.
No. I don't unless you got any questions or
Nope. Yeah. Well, I think that'll do it. Thank you guys for joining us, and yeah. Well, I'll let you close this out.
yeah. Somewhere in those halls, she's still walking down the stairs.